Hello everyone and welcome. Good to have your company. I'm Arnold Geerdts and this is the first edition of Xtreme Trail Talk as we look at training for the 2018 Kalahari Augrabies Xtreme Marathon. It's the first of our monthly programs. There will be 7 more installments. There's lots to talk about. How do you go about putting together the training that gets you over 7 days to complete 250 Ks in some of the most extreme conditions on the face of the planet? We're coming to you live from Randburg, Johannesburg, South Africa. Stay right where you are. Xtreme Trail Talk continues, and we did tell you that we're going to be talking about training and how you go about it. And we have in studio with us, or rather in bar, not that we've embraced any of the product behind us as of yet, 2 runners who've both completed 2 of the Kalahari Augrabies Extreme Marathons. Closest to me, nice to have Rene Volgraaf with us. Rene, welcome and thank you for your time after a very busy day today, writing all the politics of the day. And another man who's completed 2 of them, Louis Fissett. Louis, welcome to you as well. Let's start off by saying, I think before we even talk about the training that's needed, why does one do the KAEM?
Well, not to just always grab a cliche out of the air, but I mean, I guess it's like someone said about Everest, because it's there. Once you start running, maybe you do a half marathon, you proceed to a marathon, you maybe, if you're lucky, proceed to do Comrades, and then you start thinking, what's next? What can I do next to challenge me? So it's about looking for the next challenge, I think.
And for you, Lou?
Yeah, it's the same. The challenge was there, and not realizing what you let yourself into, and only realizing afterwards it's much more challenging than anything I've ever done in my life. I think it's the hardest and toughest thing that anybody does voluntary in one's life. So, but yeah, it's a challenge, and that's why we keep on going back.
Of course, one of the things of the Kalahari Augrabies Extreme Marathon is that it is self-supported, and that I think makes it very tough as well. So we will talk about nutrition in a program still coming up in the next 7 months or so, but let's turn our attention to training. It's 250 Ks over 7 days, and there's a particularly long day which can stretch into 70 Ks in 9 hours or 13 hours worth of moving in one direction. How do you approach your training?
Well, I've been lucky in the past 2-3 years that I did Kalahari Augrabies after Comrades. So I was training for Comrades, and after Comrades, rest for 2-3 weeks or however long they say you must rest, and then kind of start picking it up from there again. So there's a kind of a base fitness. I wouldn't say you necessarily do more kilometers than you do for Comrades in a week. You don't have to do like 150, 200 kilometers in a week. You can stay at about 60, maybe a 70-kilometer week. You don't want to be doing too much either, because you don't want to mess up your body beforehand.
And for you, Mr. Fissett?
Yeah, I agree with Rene. I haven't done anything further than Comrades training, but we've done things differently. Yeah. You start running trails, you start looking for places to run off-road, because it's not road running. You have to have a different gait. And you have to get used to the pack. You have to start getting used to the pack like 3 months before.
Let's talk about that, because I think that is the hardest thing of all, of course. Running Comrades, it's your club vest and your shorts and your shoes, and that's about as much as you need to lift, except the odd Coke every now and then. But you've got a pack, and you start off with it weighing anything from 9 kilograms up at the beginning. How do you train yourself to run with that pack?
Well, I find it kind of important to start with a pack gradually. So you can't just put a 9-kilo pack on your back and start running. So what I find useful is to take about 2 months before the Kalahari Augrabies event, beginning of September, end of August, you start running with a small pack, maybe the small water pack that you have. Add 2 kilograms to that, whether it's 2 kilograms of rice or whether it's a dumbbell, and you gradually build it up, 2 kilograms, 3 kilograms, 4 kilograms, so your body get used to it in a gradual fashion. Otherwise, the shock would also just be too much, and you maybe will curl up in a little ball and not want to go out again ever.
That's basically the same kind of process that you follow.
Same process, except for I've never tried the dumbbell because that's a bit hard.
She's tougher than you, that's what she's saying.
But the rice tend to disappear in the house. So, yeah.
Mrs. said, I bought a packet yesterday.
Yeah.
And then you add on and you add on.
Yeah.
Although there must be chafe and there must be, you obviously get used to the pack, and it's difficult though. I've tried to do that as well. It's a difficult thing to get used to, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And chafing, oh goodness, I mean, I've initially lost almost all the skin around my waist from the chafing.
What do you do for that?
I've tried various things. Obviously, some people would say you just wear the wrong pack, so I did change my pack at some stage. It still chafed a little. The physio tape that you often get, people get that they tape the muscles.
Coloured tape.
Yeah,
words,
that's quite useful. But the most useful thing is actually to use something like Body Glide, a proper kind of a
lubricant.
Chafing lubricant. That's actually the most efficient, because even when you do tape, at some point, it kind of gets sensitive and red, and you lose a bit of skin, which is unpleasant if
And
you're
it's
out there.
inevitably soft parts of the body. It's around the waist, etc.
Yeah.
Louis, for you, how do you handle it?
Around the bony parts on the body.
Now, there's a thin guy who's talking.
Yeah.
See if he's got bony parts.
On the shoulder bones and so on. You tend to get used to that over the time, and also I believe you have to wear in your pack. So your pack must form to your body, and then you teach your pack over time. You can't do it over 1 or 2 weeks. You have to do it over 2 or 3 months.
And give us an idea of which pack you prefer to wear. Is there a certain brand and why?
I did one Augrabies with the first Ascent pack, which was a very nice pack. It was comfortable. It was big, quite big, 30 liters, I think. And then I thought, well, somehow I have to bring down the weight of this pack. The only way I'm going to do that is to buy a smaller pack and thus force myself to pack less stuff. So now
How does a woman do that for starters?
It's easy. I have a 20-liter Raid Light pack, which is, it's quite nice. It's fairly soft where it touches the body. It's compact. It's got enough space for the stuff you really need, and it doesn't have space for the stuff you don't need.
Which one do you prefer?
Raid Light. Yeah, I've tried various packs over the time I trained, but the Raid Light one's very, very good. They're made for that.
We actually sort of started at the back end of this, because this is sort of for the last 2 months. But how much fitness do you need? If someone's watching this and they've run, let's say, a half marathon in the last 2 or 3 weeks, and they thought, I wouldn't mind going a bit further, and they may run a marathon, and then think, maybe Augrabies isn't a bad bet. Would that fitness be sufficient if they started training for it now, or is it too early?
I think it would be sufficient. If you're on a kind of a comfortable half marathon level and you can do a half marathon without, being unable to move for the next 7 days, you should kind of gradually just start building up your kilometers. Maybe aim to do one stretch of, I don't want to say, 40 kilometers or 50 kilometers by June. Maybe aim to do a 5 or 6 hour run by June. You don't have to do a comrade's distance or comrade's duration. If you go up to, a 5 or 6 hour in one stretch by June, I think, you'd be good.
So how far out do you have to start doing these long runs? From when do you start doing your long runs? If you
the same, I was also did comrades, and then afterwards you take 2 or 3 weeks off, and then you slowly start in July through the winter months, and then in August you start picking it up. But do the long trains, I would say 5 weeks before you get to the event, you would do a nice long run, 5 or 6 hours with a 6 kilogram pack, so you can get used to that long hours with the heavy pack on. But if you're on a 21 kilometer training, now you would be able to do it, definitely. I'm not a super athlete, I'm a normal average guy, and I've done it. So anybody that can run a 21 are able to do this, and just put their minds to it.
Here's a message and a question from Estie Besaidnout, who wanted to know how much training is needed beforehand to finish, or is it a mental game if you've done the training? Interesting question.
It's a mental game if you've done the training, definitely. It's all about knowing it is going to be long, it is going to be slow, and it is going to be a little painful. So just like with any kind of long run, the mental strength is as important as the physical strength.
But you said something interesting to me, is you try, when you train for this, you trained in the middle of the day in
Yeah.
the hottest part, because that's what you're going to have to face.
Yes,
in the
because
Kalahari.
you have to get used to the heat and the conditions. If you don't try and simulate that somewhere in your training, you're going to wake up with a shock.
Did you do the same, Renee?
I did not, and I did wake up with a shock.
Ah, okay.
So yes, I can definitely agree with what Louis
Just
said.
take us back to that, because I think one should put that in context. When you say shock, what did that feel like when you finally realized this is as hot as it's ever been and I've ever run before?
You kind of, you know that feeling when you're really hot and you long for, you know, a spot of shade or to jump into water, and you realize you can not have that today. You kind of have to get your mind over the fact that you're longing for something cooler. So it's also part of the mind game, almost going into a lower gear, I would say. And like when you go up a giant hill, when you go into a very low gear and start moving slow. So it's something similar.
Take us through the training that you did in the hottest parts of the day.
Usually I would do, when it's on a Sunday, for instance, 12 o'clock in the afternoon, I would go out for my run with my pack on my back, and people would sit on their patios and laugh at you running
Have a
up.
braai.
You have a braai and you would smell the braai and you would smell the meat. Oh. Yeah, but you have to do the training, so you do it in the heat of the day, in September and October, which is the hottest part. So that's how you get used to that. And you have to, because you're going to encounter 48 degrees, 46 degrees.
And how do you prepare for that before the time? Do you load up on liquid? Is that something that you used to do? So try and drink the day before a run like that, 4, 5, 6 hours in the sun. Drink more liquid than normal?
No.
Not.
No. I would try and rehydrate myself on the run, and try and take small sips during the run, and not try and do something big beforehand, because you won't be able to do that on the race.
That, of course, is one of the secrets as well, I would imagine, is to make sure that because you've got this liquid problem, what you carry with you is what you've got.
Yes.
You've got to look after it. You've got to ration it.
Yes, but also you have to make sure you actually drink it, because sometimes you do tend to want to ration it, and which means you don't drink enough of it. So usually on Kalahari or Augrabies, your water points would be between 8 and 10 kilometers apart. So you kind of have to force yourself sometimes to drink that water. Where you realize, okay, I'm only 2 kilometers away from the next water point. I have to finish this bottle now, otherwise I'm not going to get the hydration I actually need.
The reason I ask this question is because that's part of your training too. You need to train for that in your build-up, and that's part of the training, is to make sure that your body handles that hydration or lack of it as well as it possibly can.
Yes.
For you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you cannot go through the training and not learn yourself or teach yourself to drink sparingly, but keep on hydrating all the time.
So, one of the biggest questions, obviously, how do you prepare the feet, the toes and the toenails? Because that's the body part that probably takes the most punishment, especially when you've got sand troubles.
Yeah. Well,
with some severe pain in the voice.
well, like with most of the rest of the body, I mean, the feet would be prepared in your actual training. You're spending hours in that same pair of shoes, that same pair of socks. Keeping sand out of your shoes during the run is quite handy, whether it means you actually wear gaiters or whether it means at every second water point you actually take a few minutes, sit down, take off your shoes, shake them out and put on another pair of socks.
Let me just stop you there for a second. Just explain to our viewers who wouldn't know what gaiters are, how they work and what they are.
It's I almost want to say it's almost
clip-on sock.
It's almost like a
closes.
clip-on sock without feet. So it fits tight around your ankle, and it covers the part between the shoe and the sock, where the sand usually goes in and it niggles you. So it kind of covers that part of your shoe.
And when you do get sand in, do you stop? Do you get rid of it? What is your experience with that?
Yes, you should get rid of it before it kind of becomes a problem. Once it starts chafing you, it will keep on chafing you. So as soon as you feel there's a teaspoon of sand in my feet, you quickly stop. I mean, your body would thank you later on for that quick rest, and you get rid of the sand.
How do you handle the sand problem?
The same. The first one I've done, I've made the mistake to have a shoe where the toe box was a rough mesh, and the sand would fall through there, and the problem is once the sand gets into your shoe, there's always some residual sand that stays there, and it's chafing you. And that's a big mistake. So that's one of the important things to do, is to keep the sand out of your shoes.
And how do you train for this? Are you out there on the trails and you try and get sand in there?
Yeah,
or what do you do in the training?
Our landlocked guys suffer. There's not enough sand in the whole of Gauteng.
Mind ups.
Yeah. You have to find a sandy spot and run that over and over and over again, because you would encounter lots and lots of sand. And you have to teach yourself how to run on the sand. Remember, you're 6 or 7 kilograms heavier with your pack on, so it's going to be more difficult. So get a sand patch somewhere and run over it, over and over again.
Here's a question from Heidi Hubert, who says, would you suggest doing 3 or 4 days of running time in a row on the legs? And if so, more or less how long each day? And would you do this 5 weeks out from race day?
Yes, it does sound sensible. I would not do more than, if you do 3 or 4 days consecutively, maybe, 10 kilometers, maybe throw in a 15 and another 10, just so your body gets used to the consecutive days. And also, in my experience, it's good to make sure you wear the pack on consecutive days. Don't only think, I'm going to wear the pack for my long weekend runs. Your body has to get used to the extra weight day after day after day. Otherwise, your body thinks, well, I only have to run with this pack on Sunday, then I can rest for a week, then it's Sunday again, and then you will feel it a bit on race.
That, of course, is one of the arts, is to get used to running 40 Ks, and the next day, ta-da, guess what, it's another one. And the day after that, it's another. That's something that takes a bit of training.
Yes, and what I would have done is, in the past, is I would run in the evenings, and then early in the next morning I would go out for a run again. So a quick change makes your legs and your body and your mind, it teaches them to continue. And 2 long runs just back to back.
How hard is that to do?
In the beginning it's very difficult, but when you're on Augrabies, you tend to get used to that after the first hour. Then your body tends to get used to it, so it comes naturally after an hour, but the first hour is a bit difficult.
And following in from those 2 questions, we're getting questions from all the ladies, which we're really pleased about. Rita Janse van Rensburg says, are back-to-back long runs an important way to prepare? So let's define a long run first. What's a long run? 2-3 hours plus?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, but
are they important?
No more than 4 hours.
Okay.
But yes, like Louis said, they are important to prepare. But also, you don't want to do it every single week in like a whole year of training. Up until maybe 4 weeks before.
Yeah.
And then you should also start giving your body a bit of a break.
And would that be every week or every second week? What would you recommend?
I would say every second week.
Okay. Strength exercises. The core. We've all heard about the core for forever, and I was with a physio the other day who said, you guys talk about core all the time. It's your back that's important, because the back holds up the core. What do you do? Do you do anything extra other than run?
The first year I trained for Augrabies, someone suggested you should do lunges. Put on your pack with your 9 or 8 Ks or whatever it's going to weigh, and do lunges to strengthen your legs and make your legs used to that extra weight. And then also, core exercise. I'm not a physio, but people say it's good. And if your back is going to do extra work wearing the extra weight, it's not necessarily a bad idea to make sure you get some of those in. Not all of us can do a push-up. I certainly can't, but if you can, that's maybe a good one to do.
So you do sit-ups, and what else core-wise?
Just the old-fashioned plank.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with a plank.
Yeah.
I agree. The planking, especially for me, a tall guy, I tend to hunch over, so the planks help me to keep up straight and keep the backpack from pulling me backwards. So yes, those are important too.
I thought that I could do a plank beautifully until about 6 months ago, and I saw on the Runners World website, so you do normal plank, but then the legs, as you're in the plank, right leg out and back, and left leg out and back, and I thought, easy. Did 10 of those, and I thought it was going to throw up. So it just shows you runners are still weak in some areas, and that was fabulous. From a core point of view, that worked beautifully. We spoke about the heat, but do you do extra work for the heat? So in other words, sit in a sauna, for instance. I've heard runners do that for when they know they're going to encounter massive amounts of heat. Renee, your thoughts on that?
I've never tried that, but I do know some people who train for, I mean, the ultra desert races like Augrabies would also, I mean, maybe go to a gym where you can have a treadmill in a very hot room or in a sauna type room. So that will certainly help. I haven't tried that. Maybe if I have, I would not have suffered as much.
Yeah, I won't agree with the sauna part because you won't encounter the humidity. And the sauna tends to have a very high humidity, so it would be totally different than the conditions you would encounter at Augrabies, for sure.
We've got about 1 minute left of our broadcast to you, our live streaming, wherever you may be. We're almost going to wrap up, but I do want to ask you, and I know this falls into the nutrition side of things, but if you're going to start experimenting with what you like on the run and find out what you don't like, conversely, on the run, that's a very important part for this type of your training, for this time of your training as well. What are your thoughts on that, Renee?
Yes, it is important to test the food that you think you will get on the run and see how your body responds to it. And then also, I mean, real food is all the rage. So stay away from the gels and the strange supplements. Go for peanut brittle and stuff you can actually chew.
And how long does a potato last out there?
Oh, well, that I haven't tried, but getting hot water shouldn't be a problem. You can just put it out in the sun and it'll start boiling.
Put it on the top of your backpack, that'll do it. How did you find what worked for you?
Obviously, you would go as light as possible. So you tend to walk into the shops in Checkers or Pick and Pay, and you would start reading the labels and get food that's the highest kilojoule. And nuts would work well. They're not too heavy, so quite light. And then you must remember you have to recover. You have to put in some stock soup that you have to taken out, so soup worked well for me.
Any of you two take a steak in the first 2 days or
Yes.
1 day, and did that work for you?
Yes, for sure. You know you're going to crave red meat for the next 6 days, but you take a small piece of steak for the first night. And yes, yeah.
There's nothing quite like
Yeah.
a steak once you've taken such muscle damage. There is truly nothing quite like it. I know that you're not running the race this year, and you're looking after the tented area. Tell me about that quickly before we
Yeah,
say
it's an interesting part from being a runner first and then now running the camp. It's interesting, and it's actually very enjoyable. I enjoy it. I see how the people prepare. I see what they go through, and I enjoy it so much that. But some days I still think I must run it again.
Renee, you're training for Comrades at the moment, as you were saying, as a stepping stone for Augrabies. How's the training going with that?
No, so far so good. The qualifier is in the bag, and I haven't injured anything yet. So
Keep it that way, please.
yeah, I'm trying.
What's the goal for Comrades?
Maybe a sub 10.
Ah, okay. I
Yeah.
can't talk you into a bull rowing yet, can I?
Well, sub 10 is the kind of bigger goal, but the private goal is closer to what you just mentioned.
Ah, okay. We won't tell anyone.
No, no,
You didn't
please
see it
don't
here
tell
first.
anyone.
Please, you didn't see it here first. Louis, Renee, thank you so much for the insights. I love talking with you. And if you loved it, please do remember too that we'll do more of this in about a month's time. So we hope you stay with us and then join us again then. Let's just update you. The race is on the 18th to the 28th of October. Entries close at the end of August. So also remember to like our Facebook page, and if you wanted more information, and enter as well. So those entries, you won't believe it, but I mean, can you imagine it's already the end of February 2018 and it goes like that. So don't leave it too late. Entries close end of August. Pop in at www.kaem.coza or go and like the Facebook page. We'd love you to do that. And there's also, of course, the Twitter address. You can get hold of us there too. And if you need to find out any more information, pop in at our website. So on behalf of the whole crew, I'm Arnold Geerdts saying thanks for watching. Until about a month's time, we'll keep you up to date right here for our next broadcast.